back there, there's 3 more dozen if you
Oh,
need.
I would do more, but I'll see if anybody else wants some more first. I eat eggs every day.
And I've got 2 chickens, but
Are they?
yeah,
Do you have a rooster over there, Katie?
nope, that's what mine.
Is that mine? Yep. I told Joe you didn't have roosters.
There you go.
Well, this week started out brutal.
Did it?
Yeah, Mondays was horrible.
What happened?
The goalkeeper, oh, no, I meant the, in our reading.
Oh,
When
you
they-
know what? I can't believe how vicious and the wars and I missed a couple of weeks and there was one question and I should have brought it today. It's way bad. It said something about don't kill the children and then he goes says and somebody in there, kill them all, kill the men, women, and children. And I'm like, man, this is hard.
Men, women, children, sucklings, all of it, yeah.
This is hard, and then he's, another breath, we don't kill the children, and I'm like, okay, I'm confused.
Right.
But I don't know how far back, I'll bring that note that I made a long time ago, and I, of course, I missed the Sunday.
There's one in there, they kill everything, including the animals.
Yeah.
The wars and how vicious and brutal,
I just think the,
and I thought today was bad. They
Yeah.
were bad back then.
Well, they're saying now they're complaining about, we lost 6 or 8 people altogether so far down there in that, the streets on.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just talked to my granddaughter
Well, it's still
yesterday.
bad, but compared to what they did back then, it's nothing.
She said, Grandma, there's so many secret missions and now they've taken all the soldiers' phones away.
Yeah.
So the call went through Hawaii. Some phone they use, what is it called? Anyway, they get to use that and it goes through Hawaii, so she was getting this Hawaii call and she didn't know, she wasn't gonna answer, because I don't want anybody in Hawaii.
So that way they can
And
scream.
somebody told her, says, no, answer it, you better answer it. So it was him. And he told her that they took all their phones away.
Yeah, and they're screening those calls, so there's somebody else listening on the other end.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
just so she knows.
And, and she says, oh, Grandma, I said, well, she said, there's so many undercover missions that the public isn't hearing about. She said,
They're
he
always,
was telling
always
her
back
about
then.
one, maybe that's why they took their phones away.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't supposed to be divulging anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't go into detail, but she's beside herself.
She just needs to roll with it.
That's
It's
what
so cold.
I said, just have faith in Trump and God. That's all you can do.
I don't know about the Trump part, but in God, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Trump's running, sending the orders over there, so hopefully he sends good
Praise
orders.
God, pray for him.
I mean, I know that God's kind of controlling him too, but he's our man figure that's running this war. I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, he is running the war. He is.
So,
I heard a special forces guy say it this way. He said, Trump was a, I would have joined, but guy. He's one of those guys who would have joined the military, but X, Y, and Z. And he said that because he's like that, that he is now in charge of the most powerful military in the world. So now he can pretty much do whatever he wants. And he wasn't really too happy with it.
So now he's the X, Y, and Z.
Well, all the special forces guys that I listen to, they all say the same thing. They say it's a mess.
Yeah,
Anyway,
he got his own way of doing it, and it's not quite kosher.
yeah, and he's pushing it a little too far. You know, he needs to stop. One guy said it this way. He said, "You can bomb a country till you're blue in the face, but eventually, in order to put an end to everything, you have to put boots on the ground. It has to happen."
They need to go ahead and remove the
Yeah.
nuclear stuff, and then they need to isolate that, and keep it from going in or out, but they need to get out of there.
They're going to have to send troops in, and
Yeah.
nobody wants that to happen, but it's going to happen.
It's the only way they're gonna get rid of that nuclear stuff. It has to be
Yeah.
removed, I think. That's my own opinion. You need to remove that because they have already promised to use it.
And they've been doing stuff. They've been funding because Obama released all that.
Oh, yeah.
fund billions of dollars to them, and then they use that
That's all
for
that's
weapons to
behind.
attack Israel and all these other nations. It's just ridiculous, but that's man.
Yeah, we need to get, my own opinion, we need to get out of there. First, we need to remove the nuclear stuff because they've already promised to use it. And then we need to isolate so nothing comes in or out. And because the people themselves, I heard that a lot of them was hoping that we would take over because the educated ones, the women wanted to continue to be educated.
Yeah, I'll send them your phone number
Oh, yeah.
so that way they can take advice from
And,
you.
and then they'll turn around and say, yes, ma'am.
He needs to finish what he started.
Yeah,
That's what he needs to do.
I think the only way to get the uranium out is to put boots on the
yeah,
ground.
well, that's one thing I can do.
That's gonna happen regardless.
I know
'Cause-
he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, but he's going to.
We're probably gonna have to.
He's saying that for the benefit of the
They're
They're
community.
gonna have to do that, or else they're gonna have to get it in a way where it goes off and that area is gonna be contaminated. But at least they don't have to remove it.
Yeah, it's all beyond my purview, so.
Yeah, well, I get so many things on my mail. 90% of them are donations. So it's always, it says, put it in stop,
Yeah,
delete, or, and I stop, and I put it on spam, and it doesn't even slow any of it down. It seems to increase.
all right, so let's get into what we've been reading. So, this was probably the end of Judges, right? This was we went from Judges to Ruth to 1 Samuel.
Mhm.
So, the end of Judges, and I think the last story in Judges was the one about the Levite and the concubine.
It was interesting to me that he wasn't named. I don't know why I found that, I kept expecting a name for him, a name for her, but that he sacrificed her, threw her out the door.
He pushed her out because he didn't want to get killed.
Yeah,
So he pushed her out the door and said, here, take her.
yeah,
And they did.
yeah.
And so then when she came back and she died on the doorstep, he dismembered her and started a war. He wanted everybody else. He was trying to get allies. And so he sent it to the other tribes.
Was that him that sent her out, or was that the guy that brought
It was him.
him.
He pushed her out. And so he basically sacrificed her and so that he could stay alive. And then he took her remains and sent it to the different tribes just to get them fired up, which it did.
Really did, yeah.
And they went in and they killed like 4,500 people.
Mhm.
And there was like no mercy. And the rest of them fled. And so that was tough. And then it switches, interestingly, to Ruth.
Right.
And you read how Ruth and Naomi lived in Moab. And the Moabites believed in sacrificing their children to Molech. They would burn them in the fire. So I don't remember reading in there if it says that Ruth was a high priestess.
I don't remember reading.
I don't remember that either. So if she was, and she did work in their temple, then she would have been involved with that. But what I got out of Ruth was that the relationship between her and Naomi said, "You stay here, I'm going home." And Ruth says what? She says, "No, I'm staying by your side. I'm
Your
going to
God
stay."
is my God.
Yeah, and so that's what she did. And then she meets Boaz. And so Boaz becomes a picture, and this is why Ruth is mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus, is that Boaz, even though she was Moabite, she wasn't Jewish. Boaz becomes the picture of a kinsman redeemer, which is a picture of Christ. And so he redeems her. And that language is actually used in the book of Ruth. He redeems her.
Yeah, and it really came across to me how kind Boaz was.
Yes. Yeah. Very gentle, very
Mhm.
kind.
Mhm.
You need a story like that.
Yeah, after
Yes,
the,
yeah.
yeah, because Monday I was like, oh, holy moly. And then Tuesday I was like, okay, this is good.
Yeah, it's much better. It's more like a love story than it is anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of her sleeping at his feet?
Humility. It was humility. Because if she were found at his feet when he woke up, and then she's submitting herself to him. And so it's submission and humility, which if you look at it in the bigger picture of Christ, this is how we should be. Because this is what Mary did. Mary and Martha, when Jesus came over to have dinner, Mary sat at his feet. So you see the parallel there.
Well, even the washing of the feet,
Yeah.
it always shows humble and humility and can't think of the other word I'm looking for, but that's always a symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the purpose of it. And so when he woke up and he saw that, he was,
First it scared him.
yeah, it startled him.
You don't know.
But he eventually, he knew what it meant and what he was doing. And so did Naomi. When Naomi told her to do that, Naomi knew. So that's why he took her as his wife.
Now, it doesn't say whether he was married before or.
It doesn't, no.
Some of
she
them had
was a
several
second
wives.
wife or, whatever, it doesn't really.
Right.
It's just he's an older man, so
Right.
maybe his wife died.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, and I think the purpose of the story is to show the redeeming qualities that he showed, which were a picture of Christ, and to show the humility qualities of her, because she stayed near Naomi's side, and that took humility. So she didn't have, the other gal went home, but she did, but Ruth didn't. So Ruth stayed at his side.
And the other one went back to her own family, her own gods and all that.
Right.
Where, the one that went with her said, I go with you, your God will become my God.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people will say that in the Old Testament. We'll see that quite a bit. So then we go into 1 Samuel, and which I think was interesting that Hannah, actually,
I loved her story.
she has a great story, and she does that whole song, the Song of Hannah, which Mary, the mother of Jesus, quotes in, I think it's John 3 or Luke 3, one of the two. No, Luke chapter 3. She starts off by saying, she called Jesus, her infant, my God, my Savior. So Mary acknowledged that she needed a Savior. And so she knew. So when the Catholics say that, they try to venerate Mary and make her into the miracle worker and the one who does intercession for you and all this other stuff, that's
That'd be
totally,
awful hard on her.
it's totally bogus. Yeah, that's not even her. She was just like us. And so she recites that Song of Hannah. Not the whole thing, but just parts of it. And the Bible calls that prophesying. So prophesying is basically, today, is speaking something that's already been spoken in the scripture.
And if not, you better oversee that it happened because they used to be put to death.
Well, every charismatic prophet that's out there today, they have all had failed prophecies.
Well, yeah, like I said, they used to put them to death for that.
Right.
And sometimes they fail and then they revise it a little bit.
Yeah.
He's going to be president. Well, he's a co-president that just wasn't accepted. And then it's meant for this year, not that year.
Right. Yeah.
It's gotta
Yeah. They
change.
keep changing it, and I can pretty much name you all of them that they have failed prophecies. And it all takes one failed prophecy. According to Deuteronomy 28, it says the one failed prophecy. If a prophet prophesies and it doesn't come to pass, they are a false prophet. That's one prophecy. They don't get multiple chances. So what you see today are with the charismatics. And,
Well, it's like dark storm. I like Christ.
yeah.
The world's gonna end, the seas are gonna.
Well, and that's what they do. Okay, so here's the thing about Pentecostals and charismatics. I know because I was one for 50 years, and they focus on the end times. They focus on the end of the world. They focus on the second coming. Some of them focus on the rapture. Some of them focus on tribulation, whatever it is, but they focus on the end times. Why? Because they want to get your attention so that you stay loyal to them. And so they'll keep propagating that nonsense until they've got you hooked. And there's so many Christians out there today that are hooked. You can't you can't pull them away because they seriously believe that this stuff that they're saying is true.
I don't know how they can believe it when, like Al Gore, I mean, how many years ago he started saying the world's gonna end. They just came out the other day, he just came out with something the other day, you haven't heard much about it, because people probably think he's a joke now, finally, because he is a joke. How could people keep believing that if they go back and see all those, in 5 years this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, that's the end of the world, on and on and on. How can people believe that?
Well, it's like Paula White, who is the spiritual advisor to President Trump. She is the same way. She's a false teacher. She's a false prophet. And she's advising him spiritually on all this stuff. And he's buying it. He's falling for it. He's being gullible because he doesn't understand what's in the Word. She doesn't teach what's in the Word. She just teaches what she feels.
Yeah, and that's basically it. They feel.
Yeah.
A whole lot of them, they really believe what they're teaching is or stating is real
Right.
because of their feelings. They get so worked up, like having, the right timing and everything in the church for the music and everything. Well, they'll go into their prayer room or whatever, and they get so worked up. They feel this is going to happen. They feel
Sure.
because of what they're seeing. They're following their feelings.
So here's the thing is that if you pray for anybody, you pray for Trump, that his eyes will be opened
Yeah.
to the truth, because he's not hearing the truth. He's hearing a false gospel. And so you have to pray that his eyes will be open, that the Spirit of God would come upon him and his eyes would be open. He would see it for what it is, because he's not seeing it.
Especially the people around you, why can't they,
Yeah, and they all do the same thing. They all do the same thing. But let's get back to 1 Samuel before we go on with that, because I have some things to say
I
about that.
thought it was interesting what Hannah endured leading up to the point where God was with that pregnancy.
Yeah,
I mean, she did for years.
ridicule.
Yeah,
Well,
so the other wife was always,
Yeah.
tormenting her, and, because that one was producing children, and she was barren.
I got a kid, you don't have any.
And her response
Yeah.
to God's blessing was giving Samuel back to God. And I mean, that to me is like, I couldn't have given my child away, but
Sure.
yet it was so beautiful that, and then he blessed her father with more children. So,
Yeah, and then everything worked out for her, and she would come every year
mhm.
with new clothes for him.
Yeah, you still visit and everything. You
Yeah.
just figure this is
She
That's
always
teaching
gave him a
for
new coat every year.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Every year she'd take him a new coat.
So he knew his mother.
Yeah, yeah. But the interesting thing too is the priest, I can't remember his name, thought she was drunk.
Eli.
And she was in there praying.
But-
And, he criticized her
Yeah.
for, taking the alcohol, and she said, no, I'm.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Samuel and Eli today in today's message. We've got a lot of stuff to kind of go through. And hopefully I can go through it quickly.
Did God leave the Ark of the Covenant because of Eli?
You mean when it was captured by the Philistines?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, they were able to take it into war
Mhm.
without them dying, because you weren't allowed to get near that unless you were Levites,
Right.
So they carried it into war, and then the Philistines carried it. away.
Right. So keep in mind that the Ark of the Covenant was for God's presence when God would show up.
Yeah.
So if he wasn't there, then yeah, it was just a box.
It's just a box.
But interestingly, what happened when they took it to their temple of Dagon,
it didn't work too well for them.
because every night the statue of Dagon would fall down on its face, and then finally the head and the hands broke off, and then all the people were plagued with tumors.
They're all getting sick, yeah.
So, and here's the funny thing is that they said, okay, let's send this on its way with 2 cows on a wagon, and we'll load it up with golden tumors and golden rats.
Because out of their plagues,
Yeah.
they figured they were pay tribute.
So I'm thinking, how do you fashion a golden tumor? What does that look like?
They didn't catch the tumor part, they got the rat part.
Yeah, I don't know rats
They
do.
used a different word than tumor.
I don't know. I don't
Well, I
know.
think it was interesting that the cows they used had to have calves.
Yeah.
And they took them away from the calves, figuring that their mothers would want to get back to their calves and would go the separate ways.
Yeah.
Of course they didn't.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that's interesting. But, it just goes to show when God's presence is there, if you're not following him,
Thank God lets a lot
There's
of things
trouble.
happen just for that. I mean,
yeah.
that really put an impression on them and their so-called God.
And then Eli's sons, what about that? We see that today. Eli's sons were just about money, about collecting money and abusing the people and all this other stuff, and that's what they did. So God judged them. And what we're going to see now, what we've been seeing, is God's judgment comes down on people when he wants to make a point. And he made a point. And so when Eli found out what happened to him, he was very heavy, he fell over backwards and broke his neck. And then the same thing happened again with Samuel, when Samuel was very old. I think we read it today. There were two of his sons were doing the same thing, going after the money and abusing the people. And
Well, they were also going after the food, the sacred food.
yeah,
With pulling it out of the water before it was even done. And people would say about burning off the fat and then, no, we're taking it now. We don't care religion.
right.
And they must have all been overweight because he
Doing their own
was
thing.
extremely heavy from all the Jews,
Well,
he
that's,
was eating.
if you remember, that's how Judges ended. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. And it says that a number of times throughout Judges, but we still see that going on in Ruth and in Samuel. We still see that people are doing what was right in their own eyes and challenging the God of the universe, challenging his law, challenging what he has set in order. They're challenging it. We see that same scenario when the Pharisees bring a woman caught in adultery to Jesus. They're challenging the God that they believe in. Because the law in Leviticus says, if they're caught in adultery, you have to bring the male and the female.
And they only brought the one.
But they only brought the
And they
woman.
said they caught her in the act.
Yeah.
They both had to be.
Where's the man?
Yeah.
Because then you're supposed to be put to death. Well, they also challenged him on that too, because you can't put anybody to death when you're being governed by the Roman Empire. It was against the law.
Right.
Because then you're going against the Roman government and you're causing an insurrection. Then if he does nothing, he says, just let her go. He's denying the law of
So they
Moses.
thought they had her either way. They thought they
Right.
had her.
And right. So what does he do? He bends down and he writes in the dirt. And in Jeremiah, it says, Jeremiah 17, I believe it's 17:13, it says that those who deny me or don't listen to me, I'm paraphrasing, will be written in the dirt. And that's how it was. And then, but it says it twice. The first time it says he wrote in the dirt with his finger, which is important because if you look back in Exodus, when Moses received the 10 Commandments,
Finger of God.
it was written with the finger of God. It says the same thing in Deuteronomy, written by the finger of God. So the finger of God is writing in the dirt in the book of John. And he's stooping down and writing in the dirt. Because he wrote the law. Jesus wrote the law on the 10 Commandments. He wrote with his finger in the tablet.
They did the same thing about divorce. It was supposed to be the union of a man and a woman, and again, they went to Moses and had him change the law where you could actually write that I want to divorce her and,
He's
go
in
on.
for the highest
And,
Right.
So, yeah, they were always challenging from the get-go.
Just like our churches today are still doing the same
Still
thing.
challenging God, yeah.
They're still doing whatever they please or what fits their will at the time.
Any other questions about what we've been reading? All right, so I'm going to switch real quick. So going back to what we were talking about before, about false prophets and false prophecies, and what Walter just said about the people today in the church today are still doing these things challenging God. We're starting to see stuff like that within the charismatic and Pentecostal movements.
Pretty much.
Yeah, they're challenging God and challenging what God said in his word. And and it's always about the end times. One of them, Perry Stone, I don't know if you've heard about Perry Stone, but he does a program. He's got a huge following. Why anybody still follows this guy? He's had failed prophecies. He's had sexual allegations against him, 12 counts of sexual allegations, even investigated by the FBI for the same thing. And yet people still follow him and think he's a wonderful man of God. Joni Lamb, who just recently passed away, who was the co-founder of the Daystar Christian Television Network, just passed away. And everyone's saying the same thing about her. You know, she's a saint, she's this, she's that. And my question is, why would you say that? We have to hope that she's with the Lord along with her husband, but we have to also take into account that her and her husband allowed false teaching to go through their television network. False teachers galore, one after the other, that were heretics. And they let them do their programming on Christian television. So that all these charismatics and Pentecostals that watch Christian television fall for this nonsense, and they fall for the end times thing. And I'm sure you could probably even say with your brother, you know, they're all focused on the end times. They're all focused on
Getting out of here.
getting out of here, the rapture, the third temple being built, and all this stuff that has all been debunked, right? But they don't want to hear it. Their ears are stopped up, their eyes are closed, and they don't want to hear it. They just want to believe what they've been told.
Those things may happen, but if they start that sacrifice, that's Antichrist.
It doesn't matter if it happens or not. What happens and what matters is that we are the third temple,
Right.
and that's it. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. There is no rapture. There is no the 7-year tribulation, because there's nothing in the Bible that says there's a 7-year
A lot
tribulation.
of things may coincide, like the
Yeah.
back of the Israeli nation and things like that.
Right.
That doesn't mean we're supposed to back that.
Right. So Perry Stone, I mentioned before, he recently put out a post that 6 pastors, evangelical pastors, he called them. I call them all Pentecostal pastors because they're gullible. They believe anything. Met with members of the government to talk about the UFOs. And they all came back saying, oh, we're in for a big surprise. It's going to shake our faith, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, man, you are so gullible.
There was
Can you put gullible across the forehead?
How's that, even if it was true, how's that supposed to shake your faith?
Right.
If they were able to do all that, maybe they didn't even need that.
Well, and then you got people out there saying that, oh, well, those aren't really aliens. They're the demons that are going to manifest in the earth. Where do you see that
Right.
in the Bible? Where? Show me where. Give me a source. Give me something that says, you know, because I'm open to stuff, but if you can't prove it, don't say it.
I believe it's just a lot of government cover up, and they need a cover story.
You're exactly right. That's their cover story, and it's a cover up for the government. And
Just like
it's a distraction.
just like what was it, the Japanese with the funny shaped heads or whatever, the disease.
Yep.
They were
Mercury.
They brought them out here, and
Right.
couldn't admit that, so this
Right.
must be big heads and big eyes. Aliens.
And they don't want to look at that. You know, they want to believe that those are aliens. And so if you actually look at the alien autopsy video, it's a Japanese woman. And you can easily tell it's a Japanese woman, a pregnant Japanese woman that they sent up into this specially made, balloon, and she died from a lack of oxygen. And so they're trying to say that it's an alien because she's got a big head and it's
Well, we need an excuse for this person. Don't want to take credit for it.
Could you start the coffee for me?
Oh, no, I didn't. Hurry up.
Thanks. I know it's hard for you because you're humble along there.
Oh,
So I say all this is because there are people out there and they're all just jumping right in on it. They're all making these claims that have no biblical foundation whatsoever. And I am going to do a video on our channel on YouTube about UFOs, but I'm not going to do it on church time. I'm gonna do it a separate video, and then I'm going to upload it, and then anybody who wants to watch it can watch it. But I'll tell you the truth, and I'll tell you what's really going on and what this really all is. It's not what everybody is saying it is. So that being said, I had to bring that up. All right, so we're in 1 Samuel now, and we're about to the point of, I think tomorrow we find out that Saul is anointed as king. And so keep that in mind. He's the first king of Israel. And then we'll probably, by the end of the week, get into David, which will be interesting.
Interesting, Eli was in charge of Israel for about 40-some years.
Yeah. He was a judge.
Yes.
And then Samuel's sons were judges. So the judges weren't named. They were just appointed. And so there were plenty of judges over Israel during the time between Joshua and Saul.
So when Saul became king, then the judges were no longer there?
Correct. They didn't need it anymore. But remember what the Lord said. We read it today. The Lord said, the only reason they want a king is because they don't want me. That's a sad statement.
Right.
You know?
And
Why
he
do
gave them
you want
what
a
they
king?
asked for.
Yeah. Why do you want a king? Even today, why do you want a president? We want the Lord is what we want. Is who we want. And so
And we
It's one of
wanted
those-
at that time, they even wanted supposedly a king that was following God. Yeah, we'd love to have a president that's following God. But
well, and here's the thing is that
he's
the
still
Lord
alive.
tells Samuel, he said, they're going to get a king, but here's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Your sons are going to be drafted into the military. Your daughters are going to be sent to work in the,
you're gonna be taxed.
yeah, and all this stuff is going to happen because you want a man in place of me. And that's why this is important, to keep God first in all things.
Samuel was both with Saul and David, correct?
Yes.
Two.
Well, I think he died after he anointed David, and then Nathan became the prophet.
But he was at the beginning of David,
Yeah.
wasn't he? Yeah. And two very important leaders early on, and he was part of both of them, which was, really, I think that's amazing when you see all the others that come and go. And what he had been through for Eli, he raised him in temple. And even with Saul and Saul had that going for him. And then to be there with David, and it was just, what a life. You would have thought he would have been better. Not unless he was focused on other things other than his son. So
Right.
I don't know why you know.
And keep in mind what we're reading, these are just the highlights. We're not getting all the details.
Yeah.
These are just the highlights that the Lord wants us to know. And that's pretty much what you'll see in the Old Testament, are just the highlights.
And a lot of it's history, not
Yeah.
no.
You'll see a lot of history, yeah, but it's just highlights. All right, we'll stop there. Hi, Becky.
Hello.
Are
Needing
you okay?
Oh, I'm back to normal.
Okay. Was she ornery this week?
I had a murder.
Okay.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.